vibes to you wherever you're at. Hope they're up. So, quick little moon theory concept breakdown is neutrality. And it's a door handle neutrality or neutral into a word that I hear talked about a lot in yogic context, which is equilibrium. And it's like that's the goal of yoga, is that it's looking for access into equilibrium, and that the idea is that, you know, union happens not necessarily by means of that, but that happens along the way to yoga. That's a concept in yoga. And so this moon concept is that duality has split us, and so like similar to Wu Wei and the concept of yin and yang in the yin yang is the yin yang is that it's like it's not white or black, but it's both together. And so how this moon lensing is coming to me, that's called neutral, or that's called gray. And so gray theory is not to be confused with the emotionless skinny people or not skinny people, but whatever they are. It's like if you're gonna celebrate when it's going well, and you're gonna really just amplify your emotional state, you're gonna like hold on to it, you're gonna absorb it and just like gnaw on it. One line of thinking is that you're setting yourself up for the exact same intensity on the other end of the spectrum. So this is a hermetic law of a couple laws, but correspondence, but also rhythm, in that I forgot what the actual law is called right now, but it's basically, it's like the pendulum, you know. It's like if it's swinging this much this way, it's swinging this much this way. And the idea is that we are adding unnecessary swing to the pendulum. The idea in a Buddhist concept is that we want to like just sit here and watch the thing do its thing until that watching realizes that you're not the actual act of watching, and neither are you watching, but you are aware that both are happening, and so are both mutually, but and so where I find moon theories coming in for me is, yeah, but I'm still the human. Like I'm still, this is my main reference point. I hear so many different spiritual teachers and religious contexts of metaphor and folklore and all these different concepts and ideas pointing at like, yes, there's a celestial realm, there's all these realms. And one line that I've been finding on my journey is, but my primary terminal I interface with it all through is this one. And that's a big, you know, it's a big just recognition of like, yeah, but I'm here now, which is cool because Eckhart's tech works perfectly with this, is that I am where I am, and yet I strive elsewhere. I strive towards something. And then this is where Abraham Hicks's concept of the law of attraction, but in the specific lensing of it, using a word like vortex, using a word like vibrational equity, using not word but term, using terms that all point at, you know, cool, let's just acknowledge we have desire and we have to move forward towards it. That's what time is. That's what we're experiencing this life as, is us in time. Like, we're not experiencing somebody else's life in time. We're experiencing through these two, well, yeah, more than two, but these are the portals, these are the senses, these are the input output channels that we are tethered to this dimension as our primary existing point, or our primary terminal with reality. Terminal is just access point, but I think of it as like a computer. If you keep getting on through the same IP address, it's like, yeah, that's in a big way, that's like, you know, back in the day at least. Now we have like we have a tablet, a phone, a watch. The car is probably like logging onto the internet, so that kind of has changed, which I got a whole nother thing about that. But this is really why moon theory has come into me as a necessity. Well, for myself, I feel like I've just been in sincere longing for comprehension of a way to be. Christianity pointed me this way, Buddhism pointed me this way. I met a Muslim guy, and he was like, said some undeniable true things about Islam, and I'm like, why arm, leg, head? How does this mean Allah? Wu Wei, everything that Bruce Lee's ever said seems to point at this, like, everything really, Kung Fu and Taoism concepts. Yoga really became my last lens last year, and so a lot of it is Hindu, God references, these beings, these deities. But to me, within the lore and ethos of the Indian culture, or not just, or specifically the Hindu culture, actually no, not Hindu culture, yoga culture, because I'm not really interfacing with Hindu culture much. Only the nodes of that culture that I'm interfacing through yoga, or I'm interfacing with those nodes through yoga rather. So yeah, I feel like I'm having a second-hand experience on Hindu culture right now through yoga, and I can just say that I've recognized this. It's a noticeable difference in who they postulate these deities to be, and I think this is kind of where I started this door handle with is neutrality or neutral. And so gray theory is the moon theory of the light is bouncing off of us, and our ego is still like, that's just the state that we're in. And so I feel like that's kind of like a moon that tries to keep one part of us hidden, and that's what Hofmeister and A Course in Miracles points at, is like, that is the separation that we are trying to keep up or continue, and yet we also long for love from others and special relationships and basically all these places that aren't God. They're not God. They're not the divine. They're not, and God is like a door handle into what it's talking about, but it's the Tao, and it is Brahman, and then Steve Yoga is giving me all these new concepts of what I've been longing for in God since I was 15. And I knew some aspects, I felt some aspects of Christianity that, moved me to what I can undeniably, call love, which is an interesting thing too, because it's like, well, relationship love, human love from others isn't necessarily that. And that's an interesting thing that A Course in Miracles points at the special relationship, is that it's like, careful where you put your tokens, because you're almost setting yourself up for trouble. And I look at special relationships like that a lot now, and I spend a lot of time solo since I lost my virginity at 15, but then I was like celibate for like 6 years, and then I've had a couple of relationships, but in terms of like what I've been seeking in terms of feeling lonely and feeling like I want someone else, there has been an understanding of what, my Christian context of God is in that concept or context. This feeling of longing for something. Maybe it's another one, but yeah, anybody on the path, anybody on the way, anybody who read Paulo Coelho's guidebook for it knows that the universe is corresponding with you. There is a feedback to listen to that can be listened to. There is an echo. Every action has the echo. Thoughts have echoes too, but thoughts are smaller driplets in the water, in the supreme water, in the supreme magma that we are all imbibing in. That there is space and matter, and then the thoughts, my man who did the water testing, forgot his name, shows that, and somatics shows that thoughts have vibrational frequencies to them. Vibrational frequencies affect matter. Water is matter. Our bodies are 70% matter or something like that. I'm sorry, I said matter, but I meant water. Our bodies are that much water, vibration, frequency affecting water, us, emotional state, but we're also just witnessing what's happening. And we were born into these bodies. We were born into these terminals. We were born into these reference points. And I think what I'm finding the main reference point is that, you know, there's twisted folks that live here in unconscious bodies that serve some of the more wicked natures of nature. And so there has been almost, to me, I look at, like, you know, pop culture, and there's so many moments that are beautiful, just like moments of connection and moments of like us as a species aligning and unifying and experiencing oneness, and cool moments that do that organically, non-GMO orchestrated human connection. I want to say sincere, but it doesn't necessarily always. But so what the point is here, though, is, so I saw this. I always saw that image of Moses, you know, and you know, this depiction of a guy on a hill, and he comes down with these messages from the divine, and he's like, they're etched on tablets, and these folks are like turning up, you know, Lil Jon as the DJ, and everybody's, you know, yelling shots, and there's a gold cow. And it's like, okay, I guess that can be like a very shallow kind of a shallow surfacey portrayal of what like paganism could be, and so this goes back to the swing thing. And the swing thing's idea is that, you know, cool, you want to turn up and ride a gold cow, you know, 50,000 million necklaces and or very little clothing, or lots of alcohol, or maybe just lots of television. I don't know. I don't really know all the different ways right now. I feel like I've been unplugged from that for a minute. I used to love, and so this whole thing that I'm painting right now is basically how there have been replicants of God created. There have been replications of the divine. These are lies. These are things to confuse those who cannot see past the images that their eyes tell them is in front of them. The truth is that there is more than meets the eye. That's why all these every culture has so much wisdom, and they're in these phrases, and they all have phrases that are like, whoa. All Christians like know just passages, and they'll be like, bah, but there's really a phrase or two or three, or some of them are dense, but you know, some of these Taoist phrases, so many teachers have had them, and so they all kind of point to a way of the heart. Not all of them, but I guess what I'm pointing to right here is this yin yang concept that is neutrality, and that if you are, and it's like, do you have to stop experiencing the turn up club thing? I think you're going to start to get calibrated to a different frequency and a different lifestyle. So it's not really about the club or not. I picture someone like Tony Robbins all of a sudden having like well, that's the thing. You wouldn't picture Tony Robbins in those environments, or Gary Vee, or Deepak Chopra, or Eckhart Tolle, or Oprah, or some of these people just have environments that you're like, that's a world. Well, yeah, they've etched out their harmonic field resonance borderlines, and that's now who they are. They're being a full self. They're being a full human. They're not avoiding humanness. They've embraced humanness and are so in it now that the human has blossomed into this thing that is now, it's almost, you know, one could say that it's not ordinary, it's extraordinary. And it's like, okay, well, this is the big thing that I think is happening in terms of social FOMO, is that there's many that are living this life, and there's consciousness and unconsciousness, and there's levels of consciousness, but then there are those who live this life that is glorious, and then those who have this longing for lives that are other than their own. But I find that on both sides there are those who don't desire anything other than what they have, and it's kung fu and it's yoga and it's alignment. Now Christhood is another thing. It's talking about some other things. But if you look at what Jim Carrey's going through right now, it's like, okay, he keeps talking, everybody keeps engaging this human part of him, and he's like, nah, that's not really it. I'm not really here. You're not really here. Let me just make that clear. Okay, cool, now we can go on, and everything's groovy, because this is what's happened now to this human. And it's almost like his human as a Jim Carrey face is making use of the personality of the ego, but for divine harmonic realization, as Yogananda puts it, self-realization. And so it's vibrational. And what's the vibration? What's the God? What's the whole shebang? What's the harmonic door handle, word, term, icon, pointer? Love. A lot of people have a lot of different ways to say that and point at that. And to me, there is a duality wobble that is happening. And neutrality is a means of moving past the wobble into truth, into experience that isn't regulated, that isn't emotionally destabilized by the mundane. Not say the mundane, because that's also another thing. It's like you want some. Krishnamurti was like, my secret is I don't really mind what happens. And I think I heard Alan Watts or somebody say it was just like, well, I'm going to be, extremely engaged and extremely involved. I'm not going to be some type of like, ooh, I'm like sitting above this thing. But I'm going to be deeply involved. And one of my teachers, he just gave me this profound door handle that my mind has been processing for over a month now, which is, can you be fully engaged and unattached to the outcome? It's like, whoa, that's really yoga. That's kung fu. That points at, crystalline self-realization or Christ realization, but really alignment. So really Kundalini rise, but then it's not just Kundalini rise, because it's not some tantric, like, I'm calling it grid walking right now. And it's almost like there is a harmonic field to be in vibrational alignment and resonance with. It has to do with your life path. It has to do with your soul's desire for incarnating in this specific body that in the eye of society has this and this and this and this going on with it. Meaning you were born into a geographical, context, and a cultural context, and a racial context, and a generational context, and a wealth context, and a religious all these different contexts. They're all part of your lensing, and all lenses are going to meet these concepts differently. But that's why I use this term door handle, because it's like, the cross is just a door handle. And if you recognize these kind of consistent themes in all religions, it's like, okay, there's patterns happening here. There is a golden mean that every culture who has a divine realization technique or tech, it touches on. And so, in gray theory, you can strive for the white and then swing back to the black, and then eventually is there going to be a neutralization, or are you going to Marilyn Manson it out and just go all the way over to this other place? Or does he still experience the wobble? Who knows? But I think all that I'm highlighting right now in this tech is that it is a awareness technique. Because it's like, ultimately, what are you going to do? Install more concepts and ideas as to how to like live a better life? That stressed me out too much. But it would still be in the self-help section at Barnes & Noble, because that's how it's perceived from the outside. But I'm just making it clear that it's really just an awareness technique. Because what's happening happens. You can align and you can calibrate. Yoga's got a lot to say about that. But right now we're just talking about what neutral is. And you're not married to forward, you're not married to backward, you're not married to left, right, up, or down. But you happen to be moving forward right now because your life context says that you have this point B to go to, and you just left point A, and you have work tomorrow. You had to go to sleep tonight. So there's things that are going to happen. And yeah, psychedelics and the entheogenic paradigm can help you see beyond that. But this is called the Matrix. So, what the fuck? Exactly. And so that's where I have found this concept and metaphorical, allegorical analogy called moon theory or moon tech to be helpful to me. Because, yeah, everything else is fucking nuts. And who's to say there's the right or wrong way? But can I amplify the wellness that I experience? Can I minimize the suffering and amplify the more pleasurable or pleasant states? Do I want unpleasant states or pleasant states, as Sadhguru describes? It's like, yeah, obviously we want pleasant states. I didn't come here to, like, suffering is not the cool. Joy is the cool. Joy is cool, suffering is not cool. So, yeah, I am with that. Whether you use Buddhism or Islam or Confucianism or Taoism or yoga or Hinduism or Christianity or Judaism or whatever you use. If there's anybody left out, I'm sure I did. You too. Whatever you want to use, is it serving you? And how can you even define if it's serving you? Well, make that up for yourself. What are you serving? What are you wanting? What are you seeking? Well, if you're seeking, exactly. If you're seeking, then I would think you want to tune in to what it is that you are seeking. I.e., do you need a compass and do you need a flashlight as you walk into this dark cave? Left, right, forward, up, down, L1, L1, square, circle, triangle. Oh, cool. Vibes.